It's
Hello.
my pleasure to be here today. I'm a Kamilaroi Australian, an Aboriginal Australian, and it's our custom to acknowledge the land of other people when I'm not on my country. So I do acknowledge it. Now, 7 years ago I was here, and I asked everybody who the Indigenous people were. Who do I thank? Nobody knew. So they phoned all the universities all around the place and they couldn't tell me who the Indigenous people were. Well, this time around they know. Well, the Devasi people, I met with quite a few of them, about 3 hours drive from here. And they were from 12 different tribes who spoke different languages. And it was a great pleasure to meet them. So I acknowledge the Devasi people from this place. And it is my custom to let them know that I'm here, which I have done. And I'm pleased to be with Kishore. Now, you can explain who you are and what you do and your upbringing, and tell us about your formative years. That's what I'm really interested in.
Yeah, good afternoon. It's great to be with Philip. We met yesterday and I found him a very interesting person, a person whom we can always see as a guru, because from the interaction I learned many things from him. And I am Kishore Ram, a debut writer with this book, The Dead Know Nothing, and very fortunately it is shortlisted for the award here. I am basically a teacher, English professor from University of Kerala, and I did my creative writing studies at the University of East Anglia when they came to India and conducted a workshop. I was one among the 22 selected from all around the world, and I think that really helped me. I was taught by Ramesh Gunasekaran and Amit Chowdhury, and later on we formed a group there, and we really helped each other, and most of us got published. So this was my early journey, and as a writer, the thing I think Philip wants me to explain is when I thought that the writing was my career, or writing, I am good at writing, or I want to be an authar. Oh, it all happened from very early childhood itself. So studying at an Anglo-Indian school called Infant Jesus Anglo-Indian Boys High School really helped me, because the teachers and the friends were all good at reading books, and we used to read plenty of books. And suddenly I realized that I have a story to tell, and my profession is to become a writer. So that's why when many of my friends actually became doctors from that batch, about 20 doctors are there in our batch. So I selected to study BA English and later on become a teacher. But writing process is a very difficult journey, as you all know, that publishing a novel is a tough task, and I'll be coming to all those things later on. So I'm Kishore Ram. I stay at Kollam, a beautiful place in Kerala. My wife Kavita is also a teacher, and I have two sons, Rohit and Jagat, both are students. So this is my brief introduction.
Yeah, Kishore, I'm very interested in where you grew up. I think the formative years for writers is quite important, from years 5 to 15, and your schools and where there are influences from your schools, your parents, your brothers and sisters. I think that's another part of writers that we don't hear about.
Yeah, of course. So I was brought up in a family of freedom fighters. My grandfather, great-grandfather, and even my father was also a freedom fighter. So my father was an advisor to the district collector, and the area that he advised was giving pensions to freedom fighters. So I used to come across lots of freedom fighters coming to see my father, and my father won't be there, so I had to deal with them. So an early introduction to resistance, an early introduction to freedom fighting and all these things really shaped my philosophy of life, and that was really important for me. And my mother was a maths teacher, and She was determined to get me the best education, and the best education at that time was in a place called Tangasheri, an Anglo-Indian settings, which is going to be my settings of my next novel. So that school really helped me shape me as an author, because the kind of experience that we get, where they bring writers, where the teachers themselves are poets, and so I think that really helped me. And that's why I write in English, because of the kind of background that I got. Basic studies, education was really good.
So how many schools did you go to? Did you
Only
attend?
one.
Just one? You're
No,
very-
two. That's because only the first early education is done in a girls' school. So we have these girls and boys separated. So from standard third, we moved to the boys' school.
You're
But
very
it is
lucky.
same school.
I went to 14 different schools.
So-
You're very lucky. My sister says, you did not. She says, we lived together. Obviously, she's my sister. She said, I went to 3. So we had to sit down and work it out. Yeah, I went to 14 schools. But, so, in high school, how did you make out in high school? Were you a good student? Where did you... Your
I
parents
was not a good student.
So your parents are mathematicians?
My mother is a mathematician. So see, I was not a good student, of course, but I was good at writing English compositions, and my compositions had something different, which attracted the teachers. And that's, I think, where I exhibited my early skills as a writer. But I never participated in any writing competition, but I was a painter. Okay, I used to draw pictures.
Same.
Okay, great. I think drawing helps us to...
Well, I think it does. I mean, even as a writer, when you look around, I mean, I can't help it. I paint pictures. People think my work is like cinematic, like they're watching a movie, because that's the way I do it.
Yes.
But was there some influence at school? Did you have a teacher who particularly pushed you in a certain area?
Yeah, though, yes, of course, our principal father, Ferdinand Kayabal, was really a good inspiration, a role model for us. Then our teachers like Miss Phyllis, Miss Ita Fernandez, Miss Patricia, all these people really, and the great influence was Miss Mary Camayons. She was a Portuguese, Anglo-Indian lady who taught me A, B, C, D and all those things, and she really influenced me, and my handwriting was so horrible. And I was very bad at study, that she told me that if you don't study, you will have to go and work at a cow shed, you have to carry cow dung. And then I told her that I will carry cow dung, and at the same time I will also study. And so she embraced me and said that one day you will be a famous person.
Now, how old were you then? How old were you? How old were you at that time when she said that?
Yeah, that was great. I felt she told my mother actually.
But how old, what age were you?
At that time I was maybe 6 or 7 years old.
Oh, very young. Yeah. So, do you remember the day you decided you were going to write something important?
Yes, that was when I was in the 6th standard. So I was into reading comics only. Okay, and then my friend, one Benedict Roms in Nazareth, my close friend at the time, unfortunately is no longer alive. He met with a very tragic accident. So he gave me my first book, and he gave me a book and asked me to read it. So it was the famous 5 series. Okay, so I said, no, I don't want, you give me some comics, Tintin, like that. No, he said, you read this. Then I read that, and then I found that I really liked that. So I went to him the next day itself and got more books. Then I asked my father, and my father took me to a bookstall and bought me books. And from there, I never looked back. So even now I read plenty of books. So I think reading really helps. Reading gives us ideas. Reading shapes our ideas, and also it helps us to the skill, the craft, all these things we learn by observing master writers.
That's true. The other day I was invited to speak with the students at Christ University here, and we were talking about style. So how do you arrive at style? And this was a big thing, because beginning writers, are there any writers here? Yeah? Yeah, plenty of writers. The big thing when when you haven't published anything and you haven't grabbed the thing and said, I'm a writer, if you haven't grabbed that nettle, it's how do I write this thing? How do I write this? Well, I've got the ideas, but how do I start writing it? How did you find your style? Were you influenced by certain writers and you kind of looked at their work and fashioned your work that way?
Yeah, yes, of course. I think the saying that is style is the man is really apt. Let me tell you, all those who are aspiring to be writers or who write fiction, the area that you should focus on is style. Style, that means when you read a book, you should feel attracted to that style. And I'm, of course, always find James Coetzee a very great inspiration. D.H. Lawrence is another influence. Thomas Hardy in the early stages I found very interesting. So how to keep the reader engrossed, how to pull in the reader to the fiction, and how to keep them engaged is one great technique that is going to make you a well-known, a well-read reader. So I think that is very important.
Yeah. Some of the things that we talked about at the university were some outrageous writers, like James Ellroy. Has anybody read James Ellroy? He's said to be a machine gun writer. He doesn't write English, he's American, and he sold millions of books, this guy. But he writes in such an abbreviated way. And then you see people like John Steinbeck and Coetzee. Know John Coetzee? I spent a week with him at a festival.
That's great.
Yeah, and he doesn't read fiction anymore, he reads poetry.
Oh.
To try and get the essence of the work, of the words, So were there any poets in your reading that you like?
Yes, of course, the poets that I studied, that's all, not many poets, but I used to write poems, and then I showed my poems to my teacher, and then he told me that stop writing poems. And I am very thankful. I recently met him and I thanked him for one great thing that you did was stopped me from writing. But if you go through this book, you will find pieces of poetry here. Because nobody is going to publish poems these days, but if you are writing a fiction, you can put a few lines here and there just to get satisfaction. So I have done that. And when I was a postgraduate student, we used to write parodies of all the poems that we studied, like Easter 1922 or something like the W. Yeats's poems, and even The Wasteland also. So we published it like lyrical parodies. That was just like lyrical ballads, and I wrote the preface to the lyrical parody. So it came out. So that poetry is there, but see, if we come across lots of poems, but lots of people write poems, but how many read poems? That's the question. So
something that struck me a few years ago, I came across this black man in French Guiana who was a head man, I guess you'd call him the chief of these people, and the missionaries came in and said, listen, you guys are going to have to learn how to read and write. You can't exist in this new society, this new world that we're all going through. And so he agreed. He said, okay. So they took him off and taught him to read and write in French. And he came back, he was so enthusiastic. He said to these people that, okay, we're all going to read and write now. This is it. We're going to bring in the teachers and we'll all read and write. They said, well, what is it like? He said, well, there's these black dots on the page and they make sounds in your head. And that stuck with me, and I always think of that because that's what happens when you read. When you read those bits of black typography, they're making sounds in your head. So you better make your writing sound good. That's why I'm talking about poetry. Now, I write poetry, but I'm not a published poet, but I really do craft my sentences and my work. As well, I try to make it authentic. I was writing my first crime book, and I didn't know much about crime, but I didn't want to write a whodunit. So my story, which was my second book, you already knew who the guy was because on the front page I revealed him. I did that deliberately. So my story was about how did they get this guy? I wrote him in the first person. This is another thing about style. Do you write first, second or third person? Present or past tense? These are very important things that will make an impact on your reader. I knew nothing about crime, so I went off and found out. I went to a post-mortem. It was not a very nice thing to see. This young lady had been murdered. They didn't know how she died. She actually was shot through the mouth. And the bullet went up through her head and ricocheted off the back of her skull and fragmented, and it didn't make an exit. So it was a big mystery, and I used that in my book. So with things like that, you find yourself in some pretty gruesome places sometimes.
Yeah, of course. Experience is always important when we write. We go through certain experiences. But let me tell you one thing. If you experience something suddenly and you go and sit home and write about that, I don't think that it will work. But you have to store that in your mind, and similarly you share or store all these experiences that happen not just with you but with others. The things that you see, you store in your mind, and during the time of writing, all these things will join together and come out. I am saying this is not my idea, but this is what T.S. Eliot said. So when you are experiencing something, don't just go and sit and write about that, but rather than that, you can of course use it all the time, but still some changes will occur inside your thought process and mind, and that will help you when you are writing.
It does. Now, does everybody know about plotters and pantsers? Yes or no? No. Plotters are people that actually will plot out the entire book. Some of them are ridiculous. They won't write a page without they know what they're going to write. It's like, it reminded me of school, you know, when you were given a composition to write. Okay, you have to write about planting a tree. So you've got Planting a Tree by Philip McLaren. And then you write about planting this tree. That's what these guys do. I know some of them quite well. J.K. Rowling, all the Harry Potter books are totally plotted out. You know, on the other side of the page, there are people like me. We're called pantsers. We write it by the seat of our pants. I'll write like 3 pages, and then I'll base my entire book on the way that I want it to go. I met Martin Cruz-Smith in Sydney at a writers' festival, and he said, I used to be a plotter until I had this character. I wanted to get rid of him, but he appeared all the way through my book. He said, so I had to just have someone come up to him and shot him and got rid of him out of the story altogether. But that changed his plot from that point on. And he said from that point on, he became a pantser, like me. Are you a plotter or a pantser?
I did not get the question.
People
plotting.
Plot the whole book?
Oh, no, I don't plot. It actually comes to me. See, in this novel, I had a location that's near my place. 7 islands are there, and a youth. And then characters started appearing, plot started developing, and actually I was surprised. I think writers should be surprised during. I hope you also get okay. Yes. So I was surprised the way the plot was progressing. And then it went on, and actually I never planned the ending or anything. So it just naturally came. So the time that I took to write was 3 years, and 3 years to edit. But during this process, as I was talking yesterday at the Lit Mart, that helps actually. So if you keep your story in your mind for a long time, and it allow you to evolve it, I think that helps really to the progression of the plot and other things. But it will take time. The other is also good. You plan all the characters, plan all the settings, plan all things that are required in your novel. But then you will be inside the plan. Otherwise, you will be inside the book. And you will be making the readers also experience what the characters is experiencing, because you will be experiencing along with the characters. Sometimes the characters shock me. Sometimes certain incidents I actually never imagined occurred. So from that point onwards, I have to take the plot in a different angle. So all these things actually help us to take the readers forward, and not just surprise them, but when the process of taking the reader forward, we are going to take them to a place, different place, from which will surprise them as well as the writer, because the actual intention was to take them to a different place, but due to the narration and different things coming up in between, we'll also be surprised to reach a new location. So I think that is a good experience for both the reader and also for the writer. I did that here.
Yeah, for me too. I didn't want to write the same book. Like a lot of writers, they became very famous for writing a book. Well, their next book's almost the same. John Grisham comes to mind. They're almost the same book. I deliberately avoided doing that. What I did was, I'm Aboriginal Australian, as I said. I write from the Aboriginal point of view. All of my protagonists are Aboriginal, the main protagonists. Usually the bad guys are the white guys, but we have some good white guys in my book. But there are so many issues that Aboriginal people face in Australia that are very similar to people here. And the main things were crime. Aboriginal people are incarcerated 14 times more than white people. I mean, the jails are full of black people, but they're 2% of the population. The medical delivery of medical services, especially to the outback, is really insulting to humanity. So I wrote a book about that. Mining sacred sites, these multinationals come into Aboriginal land and have no regard for anything. They just do what they want to do to the property. I flew in one day over Yirrkala in the Northern Territory, and there was a bauxite mine at this particular place. You're flying over miles of scraped earth, like about 3 metres. The bauxite was in the first 3 metres of the land, so they just scraped it for miles. So you're coming into land and you're looking down below, and there's this mine. It's just exposed all this earth. No regard for that. This is hunting lands, and this is where people have lived for centuries, for thousands of years. My colleague, Julie Jansen, she lived there and taught for a while at that school at Yirrkala. This was in Northern Territory. But there are other things that bothered me as well that in society. So I had my protagonists step up into those roles and into those locations. And it took me into some strange places.
Yeah, of course, that happens. So in my novel also, the protagonist is coming from a very backward community, a fisherman community, and so the kind of life that they experience is pictured in this novel. All the raw details are narrated, and the kind of experience that they experience when they are forcefully thrown out from their island by land mafia, and how the police deal with them. All these brutal details are brought out in The Dead Know Nothing, and that's why in a review from Susan Alcázar from USA, a crime writer, she wrote about The Dead Know Nothing that it is not for everyone, because it is something that is going to show the reality that is happening in this world. So I think as writers, sometimes we will have to bring out the ugly realities of society and expose it. It's not because we are making a political statement, but the truth should be pictured before the society. So I think this medium of writing is the best medium to show that.
Well, it is. I mean, this was my activism. I know a lot of activists in Australia. I know the people that get out and march down the street. We had a very famous activist in Australia, Charlie Perkins was his name. He was the first Aboriginal graduate from university. Well, Charlie and I became good friends, and he was a bit of a fan. But he'd come and knock on my door in the middle of the night and say, "We're going to go burn some cars tomorrow. Are you ready? The Olympic Games are coming, mate. They're going to have to take notice of us now." I said, "Charlie, I don't do that. You go, I write the books. My books are full of activism. I've just put them into characters, and I go about doing my business a different way. Charlie's down the middle of the street with 5,000 people. But I'm not. I write books. I've written 8 books that have Aboriginal characters in them. So our characters take on who we want them to take on. They say the messages.
Yeah, of course,
That was what I
characters
put
carry
there.
the messages of the writer. Not, I don't think that it is a message that actually the writer may be representing, or maybe the thing that the writer wants to say. But in certain situations, we find the character will be somebody who may belong to a different kind of political view and other things. But the writer should be very indifferent, and I think picture the character in according to the situation, the situation demands.
Yeah, I'm amazed that I'm published at all in Australia, because my books are not really, they're not pro-white. The white people who read my books, I'm surprised that I'm published at all. And this is one of the things in Australia, not a lot of Indigenous writers have been published before, I would say 1990, maybe a handful, maybe 3 or 4 in the whole country. Writing it's a business, and publishing is a business. So if they're not going to sell the books, they're not going to want to take your story. I was amazed. My first book won a prize and became a bestseller. Amazing. Just totally amazing in my country. The main criticism that I came across was from Aboriginal people. They said, you're dwelling in the romantic past. Why don't you write something serious about now? There are lots of people are suffering now. There's land rights, they're blowing up our sacred sites, and get serious and write something. So I did. That was my next book, was Scream Black Murder. Murders are still never being investigated properly in Australia. So I created an Aboriginal detective and an offside, and they went off solving these murders of Aboriginal women, it was. Until there was a white woman that was killed. Then the press came out, and then the whole story begins, really. And the black people were kind of just marginalised, and they were pushed to the side, but they solved the crime.
Yeah, okay, so should I answer?
You should tell me about your characters.
Yes, my character.
And where did they come from?
Yes, my character is Thangachan, who is he is a fisherman boy, and he wanted to graduate. He wanted to become a priest, but because of his caste, which is Marikkan community, they threw him out of the seminary, and then he started learning at a college, but he did not succeed in that, and so he had to return and go back to his island, fisherman island, and start fishing. But still he has got that, is ambitious to come up and to come to the mainland and be like the mainland boys. And
how was the plot? I mean, you arrived at this plot?
Yes, actually this is the reality, because we stay in the mainland, and the fishermen folk stay down on near the lake and on the island. And at that time, we are all the fishermen folk. They come, or those who are the same age, they will come and be friends with us, and they always express their ambition or desire to be like the mainland boys.
So I know you've got a background in film.
Yes, of course.
So do you go out on location before you write your book? I do. I go out wherever my crimes occur. I go there. Middle of Australia, yes. In the middle of nowhere, through terrible creeks and muddy roads, no roads sometimes,
Yes.
Just to be authentic. I go out there and I want to feel that, like I've done when I've worked in film.
I've not actually worked in film, but I'm a film scholar, done some research, postdoctoral on film studies, QA film studies actually. But I am also a member of was a member of the Fellowship Committee of Kerala Chalachitra Academy, and I often go for films, and I think films really help us. And many who read this novel said that it was just like watching a movie.
So do you go out to those locations at the
yes,
island?
Yes, of course. But there is a location called Arikal described here. I actually never visited that place, but later on, after completing the novel, I went with a friend, and then I went around and said that this is almost same that I imagined it to be. So sometimes I think it is good to imagine a location. Even if we go to a location, I think when we write it down, it will be an entirely different thing. Just like in cinema, for example, if you have some location that you are familiar with, or they shoot that location, but when it appears in the cinema, the cameraman will of course add certain colors here and there, and the light will be different. So similarly, I think in writing, location will be there, but when we write, we will change it to suit our needs. So it will be, if you go to this island, I don't think that after reading this novel, I don't think that you will see the island like what I have written. It is entirely different now.
There was a publisher approached me. There was somebody who wanted to put together murder sites around Sydney, and said, would you be okay if we quoted some of your book from Scream Black Murder, so that we can put it in the book? And they did. I said, yeah, you can. I made up those sites. They're not real places, you know. So I told them, you know, it went into the book. So they have tourists. They come to Sydney and they go to all those murder sites, but they're fictional. They don't exist.
Yes, yes, that happens. So in some, the way you narrate the location is very important. In my novel, many critics have said that the location plays a very modern role, and location is just like a character. It conceals the mystery, it holds the mystery, and it refuses to reveal to the reader the mystery. So that the islands also play a very important role in hiding things. So I also felt that what they said is right.
You know, I used to be a landscape painter. I went to art school, and I'd have to go out in the bush. Didn't have to, I loved it. And painted the land, you know. And of course, Aboriginal people are so attached to the land. It's not surprising when you go to the outback in Australia and you see people, they say, that's my birth tree over there. My brother, he was born over there near that rock. So the area and the landscape become real. In one of my books, the land became a character. I'm not sure which book it was. No, I think that was my first book. The land was a character, and I deliberately did that. I gave it personality, I gave it words, I gave it thoughts. So a lot of people related to that, Aboriginal people who read my work. So I think place is very important.
Of course, place plays a very important role. And how you make the reader feel the place is very important. For example, all those who are aspiring writers, again, a tip, so that when you're writing, you have to bring in all the elements. You have to please all the five senses, just like the sound should be there, the smell, all these things. So then only the reader will feel that they are in that particular place. So without that, you will not be able to communicate or make, as I said earlier, it is just like taking the reader along a journey, and you are also going with the readers, and you're showing them everything. So that aspect is important. But nowadays, I think the huge descriptions that we used to find in earlier works are not there now.
No, they're not there. No,
Thomas Hardy, for example, he describes Gabriel Oak's smile in the first chapter, but that's not there now.
No.
That kind of descriptions don't help now.
We're on a time schedule here, so we want to build in some questions from the audience. If anybody would like to ask something, we're here.
Can we give a mic in the back over there?
Good afternoon. Philip, were you looking for indigenous people when you said in the introduction? You said something that you went looking for indigenous people. Did I get it correctly?
Yes, you did.
Okay. So, you didn't have to look far. There is one sitting beside you, and all the ones in front of you are all indigenous. The difference is in the way the civilizations flourished here and down under. We had cities here 4,000 years ago in Sindhu Valley civilization. So our urban, rural, forest, sea people are all indigenous. Unlike the Anglo-Saxons who killed the indigenous people in Australia and America. And now with a false sympathy want to help indigenous people. We are all indigenous here, including Anglo-Indians. And I think and I agree with you that Anglo-Indians have a gift for plundering and are not a gift to humanity. Sorry, bit harsh, but we are all indigenous here to India. Thank you.
Okay, well that's good to know. Nobody could identify, nobody could give me a language group that originally lived here. Originally, and I'm talking about like 1,000 years ago, 10,000, 20, 30, 40, 50,000 years ago. As we have in Australia, we've got Indigenous Australians that have continued with the same culture. They claim 70,000 years of a continuous culture. That's what I'm talking about. You have a lot of different, the diaspora here is quite amazing. I had no idea. I mean, of course, I read about it, but I've never really experienced it.
Hi Kishore, I have read your novel and it is so atmospheric. Like while reading the novel, I was one of the fisher folks, and I could, like you said, no, like I could smell the sea, I could smell, and I could hear the waves. So I just want to know, like, did you spend time with the fisher folk, and how did you get the life so well in the book?
Okay, I used to spend lots of time sitting on a trawler boat that will be lined up in front of my friend's house. So we used to climb one trawler boat, and there will be another, and 7 boats will be there. So we'll be in the middle of the lake, and sitting there, we'll be talking about things. And I don't know, I was observing the fishermen also. So if you see that there is a beautiful passage about people going, I'm not saying it's beautiful, but many people said it like that. So people going down the lake to collect what is called kakka, or the shellfish. So somebody said that they felt that they just went down the lake. So I think, I never had any intention about writing about fisher folk at that time, but sitting there with my friend and talking about other things, we observed the fisher folk going around. There is something called plank net, which will be a net will be tied during tide, and fish will get in, and then there is what is called a China net with a light there. And so all these fish nets are there. We see all these things. We hear all the abusive words. They shout and talk, and nowadays it's so polluted that instead of fish they find plastic waste everywhere. So all these things I observed, and that's how when I wrote, maybe that's why people could hear the smell of the fish and feel the net and the waves. I think lots of time I spent there really helped me. And there is this island was there, Joseph Island, with a bungalow was there when I was a child, and somebody asked me, actually did a murder occur there? Because you just check the history of that bungalow, but now that bungalow is not there. The island has been leased out, and now tourist spots are coming up there. And as I said, gradually the fisher folk are getting thrown out from the island forcefully by land mafia, and then whatever I wrote here is going to take place in 1 or 2 years' time. And to those who want to get published and other things, I think I should leave a message. See, The Dead Know Nothing is a novel that faced no rejections. It was accepted quickly, and one thing that helped me was Bangalore Literature Festival, the Lit Mart, where I pitched the novel. And when I pitched it, Kanishka Gupta, my agent, stood up and said that he's going to represent this novel. And followed by that, quickly Penguin, Hachette, and other publishers who were there, and they also expressed interest. So it was very easy for Kanishka to find a publisher and quickly get it published. And how I did that is, it's something very difficult. It's a very real hard work was there. As I said, I took 3 years to write this book, 3 years to edit this book. And the original page number, the word count was around 85 to 90,000, but I reduced it to 70,000. So those who are aspiring writers, make sure that your book is not above 70,000 words. And there are certain elements, if you go through this book, you will be able to understand. Some elements should be there. As a first-time writer, nobody is going to accept you. So you have to put in certain things inside the novel so that this book will get readers, and before that publishers and agents. So that technique has been used here. I studied under Amit Chaudhary and Ramesh Gunashekhar at the University of East Anglia. That really helped. So if possible, try to do something like that. Try to do a creative writing at University of East Anglia if you want to get to know the craft. Learning the craft is the most important thing. So if you once you learn the craft, you will be able to, and if you have that style as Philip was talking about, so if you have that style, or if you gradually have the way to master the way of writing something that will make people attract you, then I think that is the key to success. Do you agree with me?
Yes, absolutely. Do you have any other questions from the floor?
I just want to ask, is that why you added all those titillating elements in your book?
No, that actually came, that evolved. I don't think that there are many, only one or two, just one incident. That's part of life, no?
The titillating pages. Yeah. Who wrote, Robbins wrote the Carpetbaggers. He said every 10 pages he had to have a sex scene, you know.
Oh, that's not required actually, no.
That's what he said. Any more questions?
Any questions in the back,
Yeah.
maybe? Please raise your hands if you have any questions.
Yeah, hi everyone. I have a question like, how do you ensure that the readers get immersed into your story? So, for instance, do you pull your readers within the story itself, the plot driven, or
Okay.
do you have like characters with inner world that sucks in the reader, or maybe the environment? What do you focus on when you think about the story?
Actually, when we write a story, we won't focus on all these things. As I said earlier, we write because we already read great masters, and we unintentionally grasped their style, and so I think that helps. But to keep the reader engaged, as I said, and as we both agree, the style is the most important thing. The way you present things, so that the reader feels that he is inside the book. And you gradually accompany him through the long journey.
My colleague the other day had a good one. She said she auditions the characters. It's like she's making a movie and she has her characters audition. No, I'm not having you. Yeah, I'll have you. And so she auditions her characters. That's what she said. I'm sorry we've run out of time. But we're not running away. I think that Kishore, you're going to sign some books and...
Yeah, of course, I'll be there if those who want to ask questions or
we're going to hang around. We can
find out more about getting published and other things. You can contact me. I'll be outside at the book signing. Okay,
Yes.
of course.
Okay.
Okay, thank you
very much.
Thank you, just
Well
nice.
done. Thank you.